the preaching programs and festivals. I personally know so many devotees who hail from this area. But of course, hearing and seeing is one thing, but actually experiencing the hospitality, the devotion, the wonderful, friendly, and very warm atmosphere of theatre is something entirely different. As they say that in theory, there is no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there is a difference between theory and practice. So for me, before coming here, I had a very theoretical understanding of what it feels like being in this wonderful community. But now I can tell you confidently, having spent today is the 12th, right? I came on the 4th, which means like 1 week. It feels like I have got a new family. This is the risk associated with traveling around this town, because when you come to a place for a few days and you come a little bit just like a stranger, but then after a couple of days, sometimes even after a couple of hours, you don't feel like going anywhere else. That's the danger. Then I move to another place. I'm going with His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj to Johannesburg. I was told to use the word Joburg. People who refer to Joburg, I didn't know what it meant. Now I know. So see, I'm also getting into the local parliament's local mood. And so we're going to Joburg tomorrow, another week. And again, this is something to look forward to. So today I'm supposed to speak about, I was given complete freedom in choosing the topic. As much as you can have freedom with, of course, such great senior devotees, but Chaitanya Maharaj and Bhakti Maharaj, I asked them what I should speak about, and they kind of gave me my own choice to make. No, not yet. Not yet. But at least where is the video? Where is the screen? Already, right?
It's the
Well, I have a surprise for you in store towards the end of our discussion. But I've chosen one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, even though usually on Sunday programs. Are there anyone, other devotees, visitors who are here for the first time, very first time in this program? Please raise your hand. I can raise my hand because that's my first time. So you should be preaching to me, not the other way around. Because usually when I come to a place, I try to imbibe the atmosphere, get to know the devotees, understand what they believe with and about, what their interests and concerns are, what the emphases that we need to make in preaching, something like that. But again, the beauty of Krishna consciousness is that even if you don't know anything about local community, you can always talk about something that everyone feels interested in, which is Krishna, Krishna consciousness. So we have chosen one verse. I asked Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj's permission to speak on this verse, and this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is very relevant for the festival which is going on right now, celebration Srila Prabhupada's 50th anniversary of visiting South Africa, and also the 40th anniversary of the temple opening. So before we do that, let's just sing Jai Radha. Is it what you do?
Yes.
Please tell me if I do something wrong. Is it tell me you can just mark me down and send it to Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj? See, I feel so at home that I even started saying the Premadhvani in Russian. Slava всем собравшимся преданным in Russian means all glories to the assembled devotees. So, see, you have learned something new today. Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj is completely fluent in Russian. I think he's one of the very few devotees, Prabhupada's disciples in the West, who can deliver lectures without being translated. And Russian is a very difficult language, very hard to learn, and he mastered it. I used to travel with him as a translator before. First time I went with Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, I think it was 1993 or thereabout, before he even took sannyas. But then his acumen, his ability to speak the Russian language put somebody like myself out of business. He doesn't need a translator. Once he invited me to translate a darshan with one disciple of his, and I sat there for 1 hour without even saying a word, because Maharaj went back and forth, perfectly understanding everything, expressing himself like that. So it's very encouraging, inspiring to see someone like him taken to preaching so seriously. Because if you really want to get to the heart of those who you preach to, you must learn the language. And Srila Prabhupada himself showed the example, because when he went to the West, one of the reasons why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur directed him to preach in the West, of course, this is not by far the most important reason, but when they met in 1922 in Calcutta, how many of you have been to that place where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada met for the first time? Have you? Any of you? No. Please visit. It's a wonderful place. ISKCON has acquired the place, one Ultadanga Road, and developed it into a real temple, real tirtha. It's a beauty to be seen. And the spiritual atmosphere in that place is so palpable, you can actually feel it. When devotees, I was telling, was it yesterday or the day before, when I first went there, the place was under construction. Devotees had just acquired the building, which was in a completely broken down, dilapidated condition. All it had remaining was just the walls. The roof was completely caved in and collapsed in many places. And when we went to the roof where Srila Prabhupada met with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I was told by the devotees, they first came to that place, they saw that the entire roof, or what remained of it, was overgrown with tulisis wall to wall, on bare cement. There was no soil, there was no nothing. Just the tulisis on, can you believe, just like growing tulisis on this floor. It was basically the same, a very robust, very healthy looking tulisis. And devotees carefully removed them, put them in pots so they could be replanted later on once the construction is finished. And guess what? The tulisis grew up again, out of nowhere. And they removed them again, and then again they grew up. And when I went there, my host told me, look, here's one tulisi. And it hasn't been raining here for 3 months. Bare cement and tulisi sticking out of, not the cement was spreading, she was spreading her roots sideways, and it was very healthy, very happy looking tulisi. So that's the place where it all started, and Srila Prabhupada received the instruction from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And when he walked in with his friend Narendranath Malik, actually his friend, we have to give him credit, he forcibly dragged Prabhupada to that place, because by that time Prabhupada had enough of sadhus. He said, no, I don't want to see any more sadhus. I know what these sadhus are. But Narendranath Malik, his friend, said, no, you must come. And he physically dragged Prabhupada by the arm, by the hand. And when they went up on the roof, it's the first thing they heard when they were offering obeisances, even without them getting up, without waiting for them to get up from the floor, they heard the words of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you are educated young men, why don't you preach Krishna consciousness, this philosophy of Lord Chaitanya, in the West, in the English language? So Prabhupada received that instruction. And he was so articulate in the English language, Shrutakirti Prabhu, in his classes. Have any of you attended his classes, Shrutakirti Prabhu? He's, I don't know, I cannot compare him to anything, just like a gold mine. For anything, any points of philosophy, anything, any points of practice, any situation of life, he can quote very relevantly a story from Srila Prabhupada. In Mahabharata, it is said that the principles of religion are found Mahajana Yanagata Sapantaha. The principles of religion are found not in the Vedas, which sometimes are contradictory and hard to understand, not in logic, which is also just a tool, you can use it any way you want, not in some other ways or sources, but in the hearts of great souls. So Srila Prabhupada was, he was Vedic knowledge personified. And whenever he would speak about Krishna consciousness, even without quoting the Shastra, you could take his words and you could live by them, because Krishna was speaking through him. So Shrutakirti Prabhu in his classes was remembering how Prabhupada would always give the most important, very relevant, completely, perfectly grounded in philosophy and understandable instructions to his disciples. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Saraswati Thakur marked that, and he told him, please preach Krishna consciousness in the Western world. So we're going to read the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam today. It's a verse which is relevant for Prabhupada's visit to this place. He visited here only once, but once we have read and the verse and the translation and the purport, we'll understand the philosophical foundation for what Srila Prabhupada effected by his one and only visit to South Africa, or to any part of the world for that matter. He also came to Russia once. That was in 1971. Actually, Prabhupada came to Russia twice. There was one visit before that, when he was just transiting and he was not allowed to leave the transit lounge in the Russian airport in Moscow. But Prabhupada wasted no time while being in transit. What he did was he went around the airport building in the area where he was allowed to be, and he carefully studied pictures on the walls, people, their demeanor, the way they talked, the way they walked, making preparations for his more substantial visit. So when he came in 1971, and I happened to be living in Moscow right next to the place where Prabhupada landed. It was like next to the Sheremetyevo airport, international airport. Srila Prabhupada in a few days, it was 7 days or something like that, managed to plant the seed of Krishna consciousness. And when Prabhupada left, he could be assured, he knew that the seed, one person, one young man who Srila Prabhupada preached to combinedly for probably about 3 hours. And Prabhupada entrusted to that young man, Anatoly, his name was Anatoly, the future of his movement for many years to come in the former Soviet Union. Actually, interestingly, I spoke with and heard from the devotee who accompanied Srila Prabhupada to that one and only visit to Russia. His name is Shama Sundar Prabhu, the famous Shama Sundar. Have you seen or read his book, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami? No? It's a biography, autobiography anyway, wonderful book. And he said Prabhupada was so absorbed and so, how would they say that, he was like, just like a cloud, the rain cloud, when it hasn't started raining yet, but you can feel the might, the power of water and thunder and the lightning that is stored in its mass. So Prabhupada was so surcharged with Krishna's presence and with his mission for this country. So when they managed to meet one person, that young man who started following Shama Sundar in the streets of Moscow, Shama Sundar was dressed in dhoti and kurta, which was a sure way to stand out from the Muscovites or the residents of Moscow. Nobody had ever seen anyone dressed like that in Russia or in Moscow. So one young man started following him, and he asked him a question. You know, the kind of spiritual question he asked him? Guess what did he ask Shama Sundara? Seeing him in the streets of Moscow with a tilak, with in a kurta and dhoti, what did he ask? What you have asked in his place? Huh? Who are you? Yeah, no, he didn't ask that question. Because Russia at that time was a completely isolated country from the West, and one of the most desirable commodities from the West was blue jeans. You couldn't find them back then, 1971. I was born in 1972, 1 year after Prabhupada's arrival. But that time, you couldn't get Western food, or Western clothes, Western music. And there were people who would chase foreigners and ask them, do you have anything like that? Can I buy it from you? So they could resell it for a profit. So that young man asked, I don't know how it occurred on him to ask him for blue jeans. Obviously he didn't wear any blue jeans, he was in dhoti. Anyhow, he asked, do you have blue jeans? And that was strictly punished by the authorities, so it had to be done very secretly. So Shima Sundar Prabhu told him, but I have my spiritual master. And if you like, I can take you with me and you can speak with him. So that's how it all happened. And after Srila Prabhupada left, Shima Sundar Prabhu told me that that was the biggest, the most impressive miracle he had ever seen in his life. Because in 3 hours, combinedly, Prabhupada transplanted, impregnated that young man with all the spiritual potency, the spiritual knowledge that he had. Somehow he managed to do that. And you could feel physically Prabhupada's transferring the spiritual knowledge, faith in Krishna, faith in the holy name, faith in Lord Chaitanya, faith in Srimad Bhagavatam, the urge to serve Krishna and the urge to make Krishna one's only purpose in life in 3 hours. And then he left. And that young man remained behind the scenes with the new mission. He had only one book, the Bhagavad Gita, that Prabhupada managed to smuggle into the country. It was actually Malati Mataji, she put secretly into her husband's suitcase the Bhagavad Gita. Almost got them arrested. Because when they inspected the bag and opened the bag, that Bhagavad Gita flew out of the bag at the customs. But Bhagavad Gita was also stuffed with photographs, family photographs of Shima Sundar and Malati. So the customs official felt flustered. He didn't want to inspect people's private life, so he packed it all up and gave it back to her. That's how the first Bhagavad Gita entered the former Soviet Union. So he got the Bhagavad Gita, and he remained for many years by himself, preaching what he had learned from Srila Prabhupada. He got the Bhagavatam by post, and he took a vow of not leaving his room or his apartment without reading the entire Bhagavatam. It took him 2 or 3 months. He almost starved to death, but he finished the reading of Bhagavatam. Then people who knew him, I knew him personally, the people who knew him could feel Prabhupada's presence in him. He could lecture for hours on end, and no one would budge the kind of spiritual potency he had. Anyhow, we're not digressing, but I wanted to read the verse. We haven't read the verse yet. So, the verse is relevant for Prabhupada's visits to any place of the world that he established his presence in. 108 temples were opened during Prabhupada's time, just as predicted. And there was another incident just towards the end of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's presence in this world. There was 1936. There was a Padayatra in Navadvipa Mandala, Parikrama. And he was giving a class. And at that point of time, one of his disciples, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disciples, came back from London. And he had been sent to preach, to establish Krishna consciousness there, but he came empty-handed. Not only that, but he told Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was very educated. He knew English perfectly, all the Shastras by heart. He was a Naistika Brahmachari from his birth. One of the most trusted, the most senior men in Gaudiya Math. And he told Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Guru Maharaj, it's hopeless, it's useless. We won't be able to preach Krishna consciousness in the West until we become like them. We should imbibe their culture, we should learn how to dress like them, we should behave like them, and then they'll be able to hear our message. Can you imagine what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur felt? He felt so angry, so hurt by the words of this disciple that he forbade him to come to his presence till the end of his life. He never saw his face again. So, influenced by that, with that news reported by his disciple from London, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was preaching to a whole crowd of devotees. The sannyasis were sitting in front of him, and the grihastha devotees sitting on the front, on the sides. And then he was preaching with vigor and force how important it is to establish Krishna consciousness in the West. And that his mother, Bhagavati Devi, before leaving this world, she told Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you must make sure that this preaching, Lord Chaitanya's message, will be established in the West. His father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, gave him the same order. And he said, now we have faced with a failure, but please mark my words. And then he turned all of a sudden to the side. And the devotee who was narrating this incident was standing on the side, and he could see that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was looking at someone behind him. And he kept silent. For a couple of minutes, he looked at that devotee, and the devotee looked at him intently, as if they were communicating to each other by their glance, by their eyes. And then he turned back to the audience and said, mark my word, no matter how long it will take, but one of my disciples will go to the West and bring back the entire world. And that was, of course, you know who? Who was there? Abhay Charanarvinda, Prabhu, our Srila Prabhupada. So now Prabhupada writes in this, anyway, I have to read the verse. So this verse from the 13th chapter, the first canto, entitled Dhritarashtra Quits Home, and verse number 10. Yudhishthira addresses Vidura. He says, I have to chant, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So the verse, we won't chant it responsively, I'll just read it myself. Bhavad Vidha Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani Svantasthina Gadabritam. So this verse is spoken by Yudhishthira Maharaj to Vidura. Vidura had just come back from his long pilgrimage after being ousted from the palace of the Kauravas, offended by Duryodhana. Vidura decided to have nothing to do with the intrigues of the power struggle, and he left for pilgrimage. When he came back, Yudhishthira Maharaj, already an emperor, greeted him with the following words: My lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. Now, even without going into the purport, which Srila Prabhupada wrote before he came to the West. These words were written by him before he came to the West. But please hear attentively how prophetic his words sound. But even the verse itself, if we replace the words my Lord with the word Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada is sitting right here, we can say, Srila Prabhupada, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified, because you carry the personality of God within your heart. Svantasthena Gadabrita, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. Now Prabhupada writes in his purport, the personality of God is omnipresent by his diverse potencies everywhere, just as the power of electricity is distributed everywhere within space. Similarly, the Lord's omnipresence is perceived and manifested by his unalloyed devotees like Vidura, just as electricity is manifested in the electric bulb. I'll continue the purport, but what an apt example Srila Prabhupada gave. Electricity is spread everywhere, otherwise where would have lightnings come from, right? So we have clouds forming and moving around. At least we hear from the scientists that because of the friction of the air, there are some electric charges forming and then they produce electricity. But we cannot really use it at our will. And the same as water, like we're sitting in this hall, and I'm sure there are some, at least a dozen liters of water floating in the air in terms of, in the form of moisture. But we cannot use it for any useful purposes. But it takes an equipment, takes someone knowledgeable how to extract water from the air so we could condense the air and turn it into liquid. In the same way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is spread everywhere, but it takes one pure devotee who knows how to manifest him in front of our eyes. Just like Prahlada Maharaj in the 7th canto of Bhagavatam, he is described by Shukadev Goswami Satyam vidhatum nija britya bhashitam svaptim jakutesh abhiresho chatmana adrisheta dyat bhutarupam udvahan stambesam vayam namrigam namanusham. This verse says that even though the Lord Narasimhadev was everywhere, it took Prahlada Maharaj, his pure devotee, to inspire the Lord to manifest in front of everyone's eyes, including Hiranyakashipu. In the same way, pure devotees, they can manifest Krishna at their will. Once Srila Prabhupada was given a class in London, and one lady of an Indian origin, she raised her hand and asked a question. She was very respectful, but her question was a little bit challenging. She asked Prabhupada, "Do you see Krishna?" And how do you respond usually to such questions? Prabhupada could not be put on the spot. He said, "Yes," nonchalantly. "And do you?" And the lady, now she was put on the spot. "Do you see Krishna?" The lady said, "No." "Why don't you? Why don't you see Krishna?" Prabhupada asked her. And she didn't know what to answer. And then Prabhupada asked her, "Do you want to see Krishna?" And she said, "No." "That's why you don't see him." And he went on to explain that the spiritual master, Chakudan Jilajay Janmi Janmi Prabhu say, the spiritual master, by his instructions, by his behavior, by his presence in our lives, just like those electric bulbs. This electricity everywhere, but it takes electric house, turn it into something like current. The current has to run through wires, but then eventually it comes to the bulb, and the bulb produces something useful for us out of that electricity. In the same way, the spiritual master, pure devotee, can manifest Krishna in the hearts and lives of his devotees. There's one very nice, very senior devotee, disciple of Srila Prabhupada. His name is Ravindra Swarup Prabhu. And there is one Ravindra Swarup Prabhu in the temple, and Chatswick, right? And there's Prabhupada's disciple, Ravindra Swarup. He's a PhD in philosophy. And as a young student, he came to Prabhupada to see him in his quarters in America. I think it was in Philadelphia. So he came as a religious student, and he remembers, he was recollecting how he came into Prabhupada's room as a student of philosophy. He wanted to ask him some philosophical questions. And after spending a few minutes with Srila Prabhupada, he walked out of his room, and he could feel there is a difference. There is something different in him now. There is some change effected just by the presence of Prabhupada. All of a sudden, that intellectual Westerner who have never thought of Krishna as anything more than just a myth, when he walked out of the room with Srila Prabhupada, he told himself, "Wait a minute, something is different." What's different? I feel that Krishna exists. Krishna is a reality. Just as much as a reality as I am. I am a reality, I don't doubt that. And Krishna is as much, even more, a reality than me. And I want to serve him. And then the next thing he understood was, wait a minute, I didn't do anything for that. It was given to me for no reason at all, by the presence of the pure devotee. That's the power of the presence of Krishna's pure devotee. Krishna is inseparable from him because pure devotees come in all shapes and genders, all races, all ages too. Could be young pure devotee, and old pure devotee, lady pure devotee, man pure devotee, an Indian, American, South African, Russian, any packages. Even non-human species sometimes can be pure devotees, as we learned from the Bhagavatam, right? So the result of association with a pure devotee is that you get transformed just by being in the presence. Just like when I was a kid, I liked to play with magnets. Nowadays, kids have more interesting things to play with, right? Gadgets and some other things. But I used to play with magnet. I was a small kid, and magnet has that ability. It attracts paper clips. But if you keep the paper clip long enough to the magnet, what happens to the paper clip? It turns into a magnet. In the same way, if you keep in the association of pure devotee long enough, you turn into a pure devotee. Right? So Prabhupada continues his purport. A pure devotee like Vidura
always feels the presence of the Lord everywhere. He sees everything in the potency of the Lord and the Lord in everything. Not just that, but the Lord himself also reciprocates with his pure devotees' emotions in the same way. The Lord in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam tells Durvasa Muni, he says, I don't know anyone but my devotees, and they don't know anyone but me. I'm in their hearts, and they are in my heart. And Aham Bhakta Paradino Hyasvatantra Ivad Vijaha, Krishna tells Durvasa Muni, I just appear to be independent. Of course, God is supposed to be independent, supposed to be omnipresent, omniscient, all-potent, omnipotent, omnipotent, but I'm not. I'm none of those things. He says, I'm not independent. Wait a minute, who is above you? How can you explain such a statement? If it were not Krishna, if someone else told you God is not independent, you would have probably argued with him. But how can you argue with him, with Krishna himself, when he says, I'm not independent? Aham bhakta paradhino, hya svatantra iva. Svatantra iva means there is an appearance of independence. Sadhubir grasta hridayam, because these sadhus like Vidura or like Srila Prabhupada, they grasta, almost the same word in Sanskrit, just again in English, grasp, they grasp me, they capture me in the hearts, and they don't let me out. So if you want to see me, if you want to make me hear your plea, Durvasa Muni, if you want me to have a heart for your plight, for your sufferings, you have to say the same words, not through my ears, but through the ears of my pure devotees, and let them decide what I will do. I'm completely in their hands, in their hearts. Not only them, not only such great devotees have the ability to capture me, but those who become devotees of my great devotees are very dear to me. That's what Krishna says. So, Prabhupada continues, the holy places all over the earth are meant for purifying the polluted consciousness of the human beings by an atmosphere surcharged with the presence of the Lord's unalloyed devotees. If anyone visits a holy place, he must search out the pure devotees residing in such holy places, take lessons from them, try to apply such instructions in physical life, and thus gradually prepare oneself for the ultimate salvation, going back to Godhead. To go to some holy place of pilgrimage doesn't mean only to take a bath in the Ganges or Yamuna, or to visit the temples situated in those places. One should also find representatives of Vidura who have no desire in life save and except to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This Personality of Godhead is always with such pure devotees because of their unalloyed service, which is without any tinge of fruitive action or utopian speculation. They are in the actual service of the Lord, specifically by the process of hearing and chanting. So we hear also a story in Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Brahma Vaivarta Purana has a very interesting, important episode. Lord Krishna was just about to leave this world. Oh, by the way, may I ask you, do I go by that clock on the wall or by the actual time? Because that one on the wall, the actual time, because that's 5 minutes behind, right? Something like that. Okay. I'll go by mine. And Krishna was just about to leave this world. His 125 years of presence in this world have come to an end. And apprehending his departure, the holy rivers came to him in Dwaraka, headed by Ganga Devi. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai. And they started pleading with Krishna, please don't let us here in this world. Let us go with you. Or let us disappear, because what will happen is once you go, all these sinful people will come to our shores, will take baths in our waters, and will dump all their sinful activities in our waters. Please don't subject us to that destiny. Let us go with you. And Krishna smiled. Krishna always smiles. He has the reason to smile all the time whenever he's all-knowing. He's even called in the 3rd canto of Bhagavatam Prasanna Vadanam, which means the eternally smiling personality of Godhead. And he smiled and he said, wait, just wait. Don't be in a state of anxiety. When I leave, 5,000 years from the day of my departure, my pure devotee will come. And that pure devotee will spread my holy name all over the world. And for 10,000 years, he told, does it sound familiar? For 10,000 years, you will be enjoying the company of pure devotees coming to your shores because of his preaching. And then after, 5 plus 10, 15,000 of years, if you feel like you can go. But don't be in a hurry. You stay. You won't regret it. So the Ganges and Yamuna, they did as told and they stayed. And you know what? Exactly 5,000 years after Krishna left this world. Krishna left this world in 3102 BC. Who appeared? Exactly 5,000 years after. Srila Prabhupada. We went to his place in Kolkata, and devotees told us that when they acquired the place, it was under the tree, the jackfruit tree. When they started digging the earth to create a monument, they discovered that the rest of the earth around was kind of clay, reddish, very dense. But in the place where Prabhupada appeared, they had a patch of very fine, soft, beautiful white sand, as if Prabhupada came carrying with him that playground of Krishna's pastimes, Raman Reti from Goloka Vrindavan. Anyhow, let's continue. Let's finish the purport, and we'll have only 10 minutes to wrap up. And I promised you a surprise, right? So I have to leave some time for that. The pure devotees hear from the authorities and chant, sing and write of the glories of the Lord. Mahamuni Vyasadeva heard from Narada, and then he chanted in writing. It says Mahamuni Vyasa chanted in writing. Shukadev Goswami studied from his father, and he described it to Parikshit. This is the way of Srimad Bhagavatam. So by their actions, the pure devotees of the Lord can render any place into a place of pilgrimage, and the holy places are worth the name only on their account. Prabhupada came to South Africa 50 years ago. See how many places of pilgrimage you have now in Durban, in Johannesburg, in Cape Town, and you know better than me, I won't be able to list them all. And there's more and more devotees coming from all walks of life. Such pure devotees are able to rectify the polluted atmosphere of any place, and what to speak of a holy place rendered unholy by the questionable actions of interested persons who try to adopt a professional life at the cost of the reputation of a holy place. One more thing that I wanted to say, actually I wanted to say more things on this topic, but just to keep us within the time frame, temples and communities are not the only holy place that Srila Prabhupada created. He also created hundreds and thousands of other holy places, also mobile holy places, just like Vidura. Devotees are walking holy places. They can come and make any place into a holy place because they carry the Lord in their hearts. And Srila Prabhupada created hundreds and thousands of tirthas, just like Vidura, mobile and dynamic, moving holy places, which are his disciples. Who was the first one to come here to South Africa? Was it Prabhupada? Who was the first devotee who came here? Who? You must have heard his name many times in the last week. Kshudi Prabhu. How old was he? About 75 years old. Like, studied Bhagavatam and learned it by heart. He was 17. 17. Are there any 17-year-old attendees of this assembly? They're about, I won't ask you to raise your hands. Your age, 17. They came here without any knowledge, any support. All he had was carrying the order of Srila Prabhupada's in his heart. And that's what happened after his visit. 10 years later, you have a beautiful temple. Another temple 10 years later. So Prabhupada had the potency to create holy tirthas in the hearts of his disciples and his followers. So to somehow really express our gratitude to them, we have started a project which is called Gift Prabhupada. And now I would like to ask whoever runs the video to show you the video of that project. And after that, I'll show you something very special, and we'll end at that. We won't have any questions. I hope you don't have any questions. At least I had to speak in such a way you don't have any questions, because I knew there wouldn't be any time for that. But now we can I ask you to run the video? No? Yeah, that's the last one, yes. The once and only. It's self-explanatory. I won't say anything about it, but then I'll show you something special. No, not that. You had it. Right there. Gift Prabhupada touching the heart.
The devotees in Russia, on behalf of the whole ISKCON Society, wanted to make an offering to each Prabhupada disciple, commemorating their service, sacrifice, all their dedication, and everything that throughout their lives they have given to Srila Prabhupada and surrendered to Srila Prabhupada's service.
Very happy to announce to you, in case you don't know yet, about the beautiful program which is called Gift Prabhupada. And the idea of this program is to present a little murti, 55 millimeter high murti of Srila Prabhupada to all living disciples of Srila Prabhupada. There is around 2,000 of them still with us, and by giving them murti, we're giving them the chance to meet with Srila Prabhupada again. This beautiful murti is molded from the bronze, and the bronze is taken from the coins, and the coins are obtained during Sankirtana, distributing Srila Prabhupada books. In all 25 countries which Srila Prabhupada visited during his earthly sojourn, during his preaching in this world.
I think it's very kind and gracious, and I really appreciate the devotees showing their gratitude in that way. So thank you very much.
It is you that's inspiring us. Sincerely, thank you, Jai. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for this most wonderful gift. Hare Krishna.
When I first saw the murti, I was amazed how lifelike it is, and I was just so pleased by this whole idea. You have all my blessings. Hare Krishna.
So it must be some expense, I would think, quite a bit of expense, because it's so well done. Honestly, it's one of the most beautiful murtis of Srila Prabhupada that I've ever seen. There's a whole technology. This is very, very exact, very detailed. So the fact that there's been so much intention and thought in it, I'm sure it will be successful.
The amount of love from Prabhupada came through this murti. It's one thing to buy a murti or ask for a murti, but if someone gives you a murti as a gift, really this is the first murti I've ever received, the one of Prabhupada, so I took it as something so special. And I immediately ran out and got Vyasa-san and pillows and chadar, and I'll make clothes for him.
It's very small, it's easy to bathe Prabhupada, and it's also easy for traveling, which is very important.
When somebody does something like that for you, you're humbled by the kindness and the significance of it. So I'm very grateful, and in fact, I'm so grateful that I don't know, I'm stuck trying to figure out a way how to reciprocate what I can do to show my gratitude.
I'm sure that I will get the empowerment to preach, because he only is giving me the power, and I am just his instrument, his servant. So I thank you very much for this gift. I will treasure him very much.
Many devotees can get beautiful murti of Srila Prabhupada.
So far as I'm concerned, in relationship with my disciples who are so kindly cooperating with me in the matter of my rendering service to my spiritual master, for them I am always ready to come back from Goloka Vrindavan if they are not delivered along with me. That is so encouraging. And he's got a nice pillow. Gosh, very nicely done. Thank you so very much.
A nice gift of love given by the Russian devotees to the Prabhupada disciples. It's a wonderful exchange of love. It helps strengthen our relationships.
And beautiful, meaningful photographs of the past of Prabhupada sitting alone with, frankly speaking, low-class people. We came from a very low-class background. And Prabhupada picked us up out of that and made us devotees.
I'll have him with me the whole time. And I really appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
I wish it all success. I'm sure that Srila Prabhupada and the whole Parampara will bless it.
It's probably one of the most amazing gifts I've ever received in my life.
It's a personalized gift, and I'm very appreciative for that gesture. Thank you so much.
Spasibo.